Prior to 1882, Cloudsley Place, located off Liverpool Road in Islington, was known as Elizabeth Terrace. Eagle-eyed pedestrians might spot the original name still inscribed on a plaque on the parapet between numbers 10 and 11. On Thursday the 21st of December, 1876, a fatal accident occurred on Elizabeth Terrace that involved a man who 12 years later would become a prominent name in the early stages of the crimes that are now known as the Jack the Ripper murders. At around 4 o'clock that afternoon, Charles Cross, a carman who worked for Pickford's, was manoeuvring his horse and van along the thoroughfare when two little boys, one of whom was 4-year-old Walter Williams, stepped out from behind a trap that was parked up by the pavement. His companion was able to pull back just in the nick of time, but Walter was not so fortunate, and despite Cross's attempts to bring his vehicle to a halt, the rear wheel ran over the boy, causing injuries from which he later died. On Sunday the 24th of December, Lloyd's weekly newspaper published the following brief mention of the tragedy. Last evening, Mr. Blake, coroner's officer, received information of the death of Walter Williams, aged 4 years, son of a jeweller. The child expired from injuries caused by being run over in the streets by one of Messrs. Pickford's vans. The inquest into Walter Williams's death was held on Wednesday the 27th of December, and the Islington Gazette featured a summary of the proceedings in its edition of Friday the 29th of December. The first witness was the deceased's father, Walter Williams, of 36 Cloudsley Road, who told the court that, on Thursday last he was told that his boy was run over and killed. He made inquiries, and he had reason to blame the driver, as he believed that he had not exercised proper care. The next witness was George Porter, a traveller, who said that on Thursday at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon he was outside his brother's shop at 3 Elizabeth Terrace when he witnessed the accident. He saw a Pickford's van going towards Liverpool Road, and he saw the deceased and another child about to cross the road. The driver called out, and the witness then saw the deceased reel against the near side shaft of the van, about 2 feet from the pavement. The driver tried to pull up, but the wheels went over the deceased. Henrietta Owen of 100 Aldenham Street said that she was in Elizabeth Terrace on the day in question, and she saw the child run over. The van was going slowly. One child drew back, but the deceased was caught by the wheel. Dr. Hindhoff of Barnsbury Road deposed that the deceased was brought to his surgery in a dying state. The cause of death was internal injuries and fracture of an arm. William Warner of 25 Henry Street deposed to having seen the accident and said that he heard the driver shout, but the horse was then on the child. The final witness was the driver himself, Charles Cross, carman to Pickford & Co., who told the court that he was crossing with his van from Copenhagen Street to Elizabeth Street when two children seemed to come from behind a trap that was standing on the offside, all in an instant, running against his horses. He tried to pull up, but he found that it was impossible. It was more than apparent that the death of little Walter Williams had been nothing more than a tragic accident. The boy had stepped out from behind a parked-up trap, and despite his best efforts, Charles Cross had been unable to bring the horse-drawn van to a halt before it ran over the boy. The jury therefore returned a verdict of accidental death and expressed their opinion that the driver of the van was not to blame. And thus Charles Cross returned to his life and his job, and would no doubt have been long forgotten were it not for the Jack the Ripper murders 12 years later. At around 3:40 a.m. on August the 31st, 1888, he was walking along Bucks Row in Whitechapel on his way to work at Pickford's when he noticed a bundle lying in a gateway. Thinking it was a discarded tarpaulin that might make a useful cover for his van, he went to inspect it, but he stopped in his tracks when he saw that it was a woman lying on the ground. He had discovered the body of Mary Nichols, who is generally considered to have been the first victim of the killer now universally known as Jack the Ripper. Of course, there is nothing to link the two incidents other than their connection with Charles Cross. It is, however, always interesting to gain these momentary glimpses of those whose names are now only known to us because of their involvement in the Whitechapel murders. And on that December day in 1876, Charles Cross could little have known that 12 years later his name would feature in another tragedy that would afford him a degree of immortality as he stumbled into the opening scene of the saga of history's most infamous crime spree.